The biggest winners of the AI revolution, they actually aren't wearing hoodies in Silicon Valley right now.
Right.
They're wearing lab coats or driving tractors and managing these century-old supply chains.
It completely flips the dominant narrative, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, we all kind of operate under this assumption that proximity to the latest code equals dominance over the technology.
yeah, totally.
But that assumption is, well, it's actively crumbling under the weight of real-world data.
Welcome to today's deep dive. Today, we are exploring this really brilliant piece by AI thought leader Johan Steyn. It's titled The Quiet AI Revolution Happening Outside Silicon Valley.
It's a great piece.
And to build out the picture for you, we are backing his thesis up with a massive stack of 2025 and 2026 data. We've got reports from Deloitte, McKinsey, PwC, Bar Chart, and the World Trade Organization.
So our mission today is to figure out exactly how these decades-old traditional companies are just quietly beating tech startups at their own game.
Yeah.
We are going to break down why legacy knowledge, and specifically historical data, has become the absolute ultimate competitive advantage in the 2020s.
I was thinking about how Steyn frames this shift, and the best way to conceptualize it is to look back at the California gold rush.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right. Because right now, everyone is hyper-fixated on the companies selling the shovels and the pickaxes. The Silicon Valley tech giants, they're building these incredibly advanced diamond-tipped shovels, the AI models and the microchips.
Which is a great business, obviously.
Oh, undeniably a great business. But the legacy companies, your pharmaceutical giants, your logistics firms, your agricultural cooperatives, they're the only ones actually sitting on the century-old proprietary gold mines.
What's fascinating here is how perfectly that analogy captures the fundamental mechanics of machine learning. Because fundamentally, AI rewards depth.
Yeah.
Like a tech startup can secure venture capital, hire the brightest engineers, and build an elegant lightning-fast algorithm. But an algorithm is essentially just a highly efficient engine.
And an engine is entirely useless without fuel.
Exactly. And in the world of artificial intelligence, that fuel is data.
And we really need to clarify what kind of data we mean here, because we aren't talking about scraping the public internet for Wikipedia articles or Reddit threads.
Oh, no, not at all. We were talking about domain-specific, historically accumulated data.
Right.
A brand new tech startup simply cannot replicate a pharmaceutical company's 80 years of clinical trial data, biological research, and compound libraries.
They just don't have it.
They can't replicate a global logistics company's decades of route optimization logs or supplier behavior patterns. The technology itself, the shovel, is increasingly abundant. Anyone with a corporate credit card can rent server space right now.
Yeah, you just buy access to a powerful AI model.
Exactly. But the domain knowledge required to deploy that technology in a way that actually solves complex, real-world problems. That is intensely scarce.
It really makes you realize that data isn't just some byproduct of doing business anymore. It is the core infrastructure of the future.
It is the infrastructure, yes.
And the numbers illustrate this perfectly. So Deloitte's 2026 State of AI in the Enterprise Report, it shows a staggering jump. 78% of organizations are now using AI in at least one business function.
Wow.
Yeah, 78%. That is up from just 55% a single year prior.
That's a massive acceleration.
So if you are listening to this right now from a desk at a heavy machinery company or a regional bank, those statistics are essentially a roadmap for your industry's next 5 years.
And importantly, Deloitte noted that this accelerating adoption, it isn't happening in the software sector. It's happening in manufacturing, logistics, financial services, agriculture.
The physical world.
Exactly, the industries that form the physical bedrock of human civilization.
That deep historical data is valuable, but let's take that concept to its absolute extreme. The most complex, fiercely guarded data we have is human biology.
Oh, for sure.
Which makes the pharmaceutical industry the ultimate test case for this data depth theory. But, I have to push back on this just a little bit.
Okay, let's unpack it.
When I read that pharma companies are becoming AI leaders, my skeptical brain immediately assumes they're just buying some off-the-shelf enterprise software, firing a few administrative assistants, and calling it a technological breakthrough.
Right, the glorified IT upgrade.
Exactly. How is this actual fundamental innovation?
Well, that is the exact trap many legacy companies fall into, but it is not what the actual winners are doing. Johan Steyn points to Eli Lilly as the prime illustration of this shift.
Okay.
They didn't just buy a software license and bolt it onto their existing workflow. They rebuilt their entire corporate core around AI. They partnered directly with NVIDIA to build a co-innovation AI lab.
Wow, directly with NVIDIA.
Yeah, and they also launched an initiative called Toon Lab.
And just to clarify for the listener, TuneLab isn't just an internal tool, right? It's a platform that actually opens up their AI access to the broader biotech ecosystem.
Yeah, it is.
Which initially seemed totally counterintuitive to me for a highly competitive pharma company. Why share it?
It does seem counterintuitive until you realize they understand that the entire drug development ecosystem needs to evolve for them to succeed.
Yeah.
They are acting as the gravitational center for that evolution.
Oh, that makes sense.
And they are backing it up with hard physical infrastructure.
Yeah.
Since 2020, Eli Lilly has invested $55 billion in manufacturing. As Steyn puts it, they realized early on that AI is not a product to be bought. It is a capability to be built into the organizational DNA.
We also see this deep integration happening at Pfizer.
Right.
According to Biospace, they aren't just handing scientists a new AI software program.
No, they're going much deeper.
They are literally pairing AI engineers directly with their biochemists across their R&D organization with an $11 billion R&D spend plan for 2026.
Think about the mechanics of that pairing for a second.
Yeah.
A biochemist knows the disease pathway intimately, right?
Right.
And the AI engineer knows how to structure the algorithm. By sitting them together, the algorithm isn't just doing generic math. It is being trained exclusively on Pfizer's decades of proprietary trial data to hunt for specific biological interactions.
Which leads to actual medical breakthroughs. Takeda recently reported positive results in late-stage clinical trials for a molecule designed entirely by AI to treat plaque psoriasis.
That's huge.
It is. And just to contextualize this for you, the listener, when we say late-stage or phase 3 trials, we are talking about the final, massively expensive hurdle before a drug goes to market. It involves thousands of patients, and it is where the vast majority of promising drugs just completely fail.
And that failure rate is the defining bottleneck of modern medicine. Historically, drug discovery is like trying to find a specific needle in a haystack of millions of chemical compounds.
Right. A human chemist might take months to synthesize and physically test just a few variations of a molecule in a lab.
Just to see if it binds to a specific disease-causing protein.
But the AI doesn't need physical test tubes.
Precisely. AI can simulate how millions of molecules will fold, interact, and bind in a matter of hours.
Hours instead of months.
Yes. It can predict toxicity and side effects mathematically before a physical chemical is ever even created. But, and this is the key, the AI can only do that accurately because it has been trained on the pharma company's proprietary, century-old database of past experiments.
Including the failures.
The
failures are literally the most valuable part. A brilliant tech startup in Silicon Valley doesn't have the data on the 10,000 times a specific chemical bond failed in a human liver trial back in 1998.
That failure data is the map of the minefield. The publication Drug Target Review points out that 2026 is the ultimate proving ground for this approach.
Because of the historical failure rates.
Exactly. Historically, the pharmaceutical industry has a 90% failure rate for drugs entering clinical trials. 90%.
That is wild.
Drug Target Review argues that this year will show us if AI can finally beat that historical failure rate at scale. If it can, the financial upside is almost incomprehensible. McKinsey projects that AI could unlock between $60 billion and $110 billion in annual value for the pharmaceutical sector alone.
Wow. Okay, so what does this all mean for how the world actually runs? Because the exact same mechanism AI uses to predict a chemical bond failing in a lab is basically being used to predict a global supply chain failing in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
That's a great way to put it.
If AI can decode complex molecular interactions, it is also actively upgrading the invisible operating system of our everyday lives.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see AI transitioning from a shiny novelty to a fundamental utility across every sector. PwC's 2026 AI predictions for the financial services sector highlight this perfectly.
What are they seeing there?
AI agents are taking over complex, deeply ingrained tasks, invoice processing across multiple languages and currencies, purchase order matching, and anomaly detection for fraud.
Let's break down anomaly detection because it sounds like a corporate buzzword, but the mechanics of it change the entire banking industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of a human auditor randomly sampling expense reports to spot something weird, an AI system is continuously cross-referencing millions of transactions across global currencies in milliseconds.
Yes.
It identifies a hidden fraud ring by spotting a microscopic pattern in timestamps that a human brain literally could not process.
And by automating the reconciliation of millions of those transactions, financial institutions are deliberately freeing up their human capital.
Right.
Instead of hunting for a missing decimal point or a fraudulent timestamp, those human experts are now focused on high-value revenue generation, complex vendor negotiations, and long-term strategic planning.
You take that exact same pattern recognition power and apply it to dirt. The reality of precision farming today is wild.
It really is. Really is.
We aren't just talking about automated tractors anymore. We are talking about AI tools analyzing historical soil conditions and cross-referencing them with micro-weather patterns and real-time satellite imagery to monitor crop health down to the square inch.
And again, the advantage relies entirely on localized farming knowledge. A tech company sitting in an office park in California doesn't know the hyperlocal soil composition of a specific farming valley in the Midwest over the last 50 years.
No, they don't.
The agricultural cooperatives do. They hold the historical data that makes the satellite imagery actually actionable.
Then you have the logistics of getting the food from that farm or the medicine from that lab to your door. Supply chains are being reshaped by predictive maintenance.
Predictive maintenance is perhaps the most elegant example of the data depth advantage.
How so?
Well, a global shipping company has 50 years of physical maintenance logs. They know exactly what microscopic vibration or half-degree temperature change precedes a catastrophic engine failure on a massive cargo ship. By feeding that historical data into an AI, the system can monitor live sensors on the ship right now.
So the system can flag a dashboard and say, replace this $50 valve when you dock in port tomorrow, because based on 40 years of data, there is an 87% chance that specific vibration means the valve will fail in 3 days while you are in the middle of the ocean.
Exactly. Saving millions of dollars, protecting the crew, and avoiding a massive supply chain crisis.
It's incredible.
When you combine predictive maintenance with autonomous route optimization and demand forecasting, the macroeconomic ripple effects are enormous. The World Trade Organization estimates that AI could boost global trade value by a staggering 34 to 37% by 2040.
34 to 37%.
Yes, that is a fundamental expansion of the global economy, driven purely by making legacy physical infrastructure hyper-efficient.
All of this evidence leads to a rather glaring question, I think. If it is this obvious, if all these legacy industries are sitting on the proprietary data gold mines, why isn't every single traditional company seeing Eli Lilly level profits?
Right, it's a good question.
Because when you look at the landscape, plenty of established companies are still really struggling to make AI work for them. There seems to be a profound difference between a company using AI as a glorified calculator to do old things slightly faster versus a company letting AI design an entirely new math problem.
You've hit on the critical leadership gap right there. And this is something Johan Steyn emphasizes strongly in his analysis. He directs a very specific warning to business leaders, using organizations in South Africa and across the African continent as his primary example.
I found his use of the African context really compelling. It wasn't just a geographical side note, it felt like the perfect microcosm of this entire strategic lesson.
It is the perfect microcosm. Steyn points out that the core question isn't whether you operate in a formal technology sector. The question is whether you have a deliberate strategy for embedding AI into the deep domain expertise that already makes you valuable.
Right.
He uses the example of a South African mining company. Mining relies almost entirely on interpreting deep historical geological data. A massive mining operation has decades of core samples, seismic surveys, and subterranean mapping.
And a Silicon Valley tech startup simply cannot fake a core sample from 1985. They just don't have the physical data.
Exactly. Steyn also points to regional retailers in Africa with years of highly localized, culturally specific customer behavior patterns. These represent invaluable AI training assets.
But there's a danger there, right?
Yes, the danger, Steyn warns, is passivity. You cannot wait for a technology vendor to show up at your corporate headquarters and hand you a magic out-of-the-box AI solution. You have to actively understand the unique data you already possess and deliberately embed the technology into the heart of that knowledge.
And the data shows that most corporate leaders are currently failing to do this. Remember that Deloitte report we discussed earlier?
Yes, the adoption numbers.
Right. 78% of organizations are using AI in some capacity. But Deloitte cautions that only 34% of leaders are truly reimagining their businesses.
Wow, only 34%.
The vast majority, the other roughly two-thirds, are merely optimizing their existing processes.
That gap, the space between optimizing and reimagining, is the corporate battleground for the next decade. Let's go back to the mining example to illustrate the difference.
Okay.
Optimizing is having an AI write a text summary of a routine geological survey, so your mining engineers can read it 5 minutes faster. You're doing the exact same task, just slightly quicker.
Right. The glorified calculator.
Exactly. Reimagining, however, is having an AI ingest 50 years of those geological surveys, combine them with live, global market pricing for specific minerals, and autonomously direct your automated drilling equipment to the most profitable seams in real time.
That is a fundamentally new business capability.
Eli Lilly didn't just add an AI chatbot to their existing drug development process so their chemists could send emails faster. They tore the entire R&D process down and rebuilt it around the molecular simulation capabilities the AI provided.
They reimagined the pipeline from the ground up.
And the financial results speak for themselves. The ultimate competitive advantage comes from knowledge, historical data, and domain depth. Healthcare is proving it decisively right now. Agriculture is beginning to prove it. Logistics and financial services are next in line.
It requires such a paradigm shift in how we view innovation. We spend so much time marveling at the technology itself, the parameter counts, the processing speeds, that we forget the technology is essentially just an instrument.
It is.
A grand piano is a beautiful piece of engineering, but it doesn't actually make music until someone who knows how to play it sits down at the bench.
That's a beautiful way to phrase it. The quiet revolution Steyn is writing about is really the revenge of the real world. For the last 20 years, we have lived by the old Silicon Valley adage that software is eating the world. But now, the physical world, legacy industries, with deep, messy, historical, real-world data, they are the ones eating the software.
So, to synthesize our deep dive today, the prevailing idea that AI belongs exclusively to tech startups is a massive, incredibly costly misconception. The technology sector provides the tools, the highly advanced shovels, but the ultimate competitive advantage, the gold itself, is historical knowledge and proprietary data. And the incredible thing is, if you work in an established industry, those are assets you probably already possess.
Exactly.
The challenge is recognizing them and having the leadership to actually reimagine how you use them.
It represents a profound shift in exactly where and how value is created in the global economy.
It really does. And it leaves me with one final thought, something I want you, the listener, to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Let's hear it.
We started by comparing this moment to the gold rush, with legacy companies sitting securely on the century-old mines of proprietary data. If that is true, if centuries-old traditional companies hold all the historical data cards that make AI truly powerful, are we entering an era where it will become virtually impossible for a scrappy new startup to ever disrupt an established industry again?
Oh, wow. That is a very provocative question.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.